My name's Wesley Littlefield with YourBassGuy.com, and in today's video, we're going to learn how to tie and rig the Carolina rig. I'm going to show two different ways to tie it. One with the pre-rigged, you can buy it off of Amazon, fairly cheap. This one's pretty straightforward and simple. And then I'm going to show it how I would tie it with just the weight, a sinker, and a bead, and then of course my leader line. So for starters, we're going to pretend that this is our main line. We're going to pull off about 2 foot of line from here. This is going to be our leader line. Now your leader line can be more than 2 feet. I mean, some guys even fish it as much as 6 feet, and that's honestly just up to your fishing and where you're fishing. All right, so we're gonna take our pre-rigged one. We're gonna run through, tie your favorite knot to tie it on, and I just use the simple old fisherman's knot here. Just for this demonstration, but a Palomar knot's fine. I mean, whatever your favorite knot is that's gonna hold it on there. Wet it down. Pull it tight. Make it snug. In there. We tie that one on. We'll cut the tag end. And now we tie our leader on. Same way. Like I said, my favorite's just the fisherman's knot. They say it's not the strongest or the best anymore, but it gets the job done for me. There's a million videos out there on how to tie the different knots, so I'm not going to take the time to teach it in this one, but you can go find it for sure. And tighten it. I would normally wet that, but I didn't since it's just demonstration purposes. Cut the tag end. Okay, so now we've got our sinker, beads, swivel, and our leader line all the way down to the end. Now we're going to tie on our hook, extra wide gap hook. I prefer to use at least a 3/0, if not a 4 or 5, depending on how big the fish are. There we go. Got it through. Once again, tie it on with your favorite knot. This is why a lot of guys don't like it, the Carolina rig, because you've got to tie 3 different knots, and that's 3 different weak points that could potentially break. So it's another reason why it's not as popular as other rigs, especially in like the bass tournament scene when guys are trying to catch as many fish as possible. Tying it down, I'd wet that if I was going fishing again. Clip the tag end. There we go. So now we've got our Carolina rig, and all the way over here we've got our hook. So now we're going to rig a soft plastic. One of my favorite soft plastics to throw, period, is a lizard. We're going to come in from the top, try to get in the middle, come down just a little past the barb, then come back out. We're going to run it up the hook and flip it back over. It's important, you can kind of see this one has eyes, so theoretically there's a top and bottom to it, and even the bottom is a little flatter than the top, so it'll run better if you poke it through the bottom initially. And then to make it weedless, like a Texas rig, which we've made a video on. We'll have a link right here if you want to rig a Texas rig and want to learn how. But there, that's how you rig your plastic. And to make it weedless, pick it up, put that hook point right in the skin like that, and that'll keep it weedless, running through the weeds. And that is how you tie Carolina rig with a pre-rigged. Now let's run one with non-pre-rigged. I'm gonna leave that rigged since we've already seen that. Same concept. Put the bullet weight on first. Pointy end points up the line. So you got your bullet weight. And then put on a bead. And now you're going to tie your swivel on. And boom, tighten it down, make it snug. Like I said, wet it down if you're actually fishing. Don't do like what I just did. There's that. Got our leader line. Now a little bit shorter than the last one, but hey, it works. So we're going to tie our leader line back on. Can't see it very well for some reason. Alright, tie it on, clip it off, right there. Now we've got our leader line hooked, and now it is time for tying on. I don't recommend tying the hook on with your soft plastic because they're usually a little bit oily and slippery, and now my hands are slick and it's harder to hold on to that line, but I got it. And there we go, clipped it, got it set. Rig it the same exact way as the last one, and run our leader. There's our leader, and there's our weights. So there you go. If you want to protect that knot, which the bead is supposed to help protect it, but if you want to protect it more, you can actually put like a they just call it like a bobber stopper or a punch weight stopper right here, which is just a little piece of rubber that slides on over the line, and that'll help protect your knot, because that's one area where having that weight and that bead keep pecking and hitting that swivel and your knot, it's going to be a weak point. So that is how you rig them with a pre-made and how you rig it yourself. Now that we've rigged or tied it on and rigged it, you might be thinking, you know, that seems like a lot of gear to buy. Well, don't worry, we've got links to everything that you'll need in the description below, so we've got you covered there. If you have any questions as to, you know, I might not tell you exactly what your lake is like, and you might have questions on where to fish it and how to fish it at your specific lake, leave them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. But generally speaking, fishing the Carolina rig is typically deeper water. Now, I'm not saying you can't fish at shallow water, because it's very effective in shallow water, but most of the time you don't need it for shallow water fishing. If you're going to be shallow water fishing, more than likely you can just fish you know, a Texas rigged plastic weightless, or a wacky rig weightless, and it's basically the same effect in shallow water. But for deep water, it's going to help get your weightless presentation down deeper, quicker, onto the bottom where the fish are going to be. And that's why you can vary the length of your leader as to how high up you want it off the bottom as you're retrieving it back. Now, fishing it in grass is great if you've got, like, you know, if you rig it like I did here and make it weedless. This bullet weight will help come through the water pretty good. You might have a little bit of tangleness in your line here because sometimes weeds will get in there. But for the most part, it's going to be pretty decent weedless rig. In rocks, it's going to be great because you're going to have not only the sound of your weight hitting the rocks, but you're going to have the sound of the weight hitting the bead and the sound of the bead hitting the swivel sometimes. So it's a very effective rig in the rocks, gravel, that kind of stuff. One place I would not even consider throwing it is into a brush pile or over a laydown. And that's simply because with my luck, I know I'm gonna get it over there and then somehow my leader line here is gonna wrap around a tree 14,000 times and I'm gonna spend more time fighting with the tree than I am fishing. So just primarily due to the leader, I'm not gonna throw it into brush piles. I think throwing a jig would be better in that situation. Throwing a Texas rig would be a whole lot better, or just throwing it weightless. That way you don't have the weight here and it has a potential to wrap up. It doesn't have as much of a potential to wrap up. That's the one area that I wouldn't do it. I'm not saying you can't, and I'm not saying that it's not effective and wouldn't catch fish, but that's just for me. I'd rather not get all tangled up in the tree the whole time. I think there's more effective ways to fish laydowns and stuff. As far as when to fish a Carolina rig, it's kind of like, you can think of it as a Texas rig, just an extended version, I guess. So really, there's no bad time to fish it. Primarily, you're gonna want to fish it when the fish are feeding down. So, like, especially during the spawn, if you fish lakes with spotted bass and smallmouth bass where they'll spawn deeper, the Carolina rig can be deadly for that, just simply because you can get it down to their nests, and instead of like trying to wait on a wacky rig to float down, or you know, not the less natural presentation of a Texas rig. So there's no bad time of year to at least give it a shot, but primarily I'm gonna fish it, of course, in the spring and the summer. Once the fish have moved off of their beds into the water, I'm definitely gonna go start throwing this along the ledges and everything and chasing those fish that are moving down into the deeper, cooler water instead of the hotter water. And even in the fall, you know, you've got fish that they tend to start feeding back up and pushing back up into the shallows in the fall. So you fish it on that ledge a little higher up in the fall, and you still have a chance of, especially with a longer leader, you've got a chance of catching those fish feeding up at it. So it's effective any time of the year that you're going to be fishing. You can slow roll it in the winter time, and more than likely you're going to stumble across one or two. So there's no bad time to fish it, but I'm primarily going to be fishing it springtime, summertime, and the fall time. If you want to learn how to fish other rigs, we've got a free ebook. All you got to do is put your email in and you get a free book on how to tie 10 essential bass rigs. So not only is there rigs like the Carolina rig in there, the wacky rig, Texas rig, there's so many others that you can download for free, learn how to do it. And that's going to do it for this video on how to tie the Carolina rig. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe for more how-tos, gear reviews, professional angler interviews. We've got all kinds of content coming out weekly just for you guys. So subscribe so you don't miss it. And never forget that education is important, but fishing is essential.